Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious arancini balls. And what are those? They are basically a fried rice ball. However, we're not going to make them with rice today. We're going to do this keto style or low carb, and I'm going to give you a few different suggestions in case you didn't want to use the ingredients I'm using today so that you can change it up so that it fits you perfectly, because these are delicious and they are great to make up ahead of time. Pop them in the freezer and get them out when you want a little snack, or even turn them into a meal. And I'm going to tell you how to do that as well. All right, so these are basically, or usually I should say, they are fried rice balls, and they are usually made with risotto. They can have different cheese fillings, herb fillings. They can even have meat in there, okay? So really there's a ton of different ways you can do them, but usually it's made with risotto, although I have seen some recipes that call for white rice. But I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to get all the flavor and that wonderful creamy texture, but I wanted to try it with cauliflower. And guess what? It worked so perfectly. I think it's even better than using rice, honestly. Now, I've only had these once before in a restaurant, but they were, oh my gosh, one of the best things on the menu. And of course, they were done with the risotto. So I'm very familiar with the way that they're supposed to taste. So I was really, really shocked that you can't tell that it's cauliflower at all. So I'm really excited about this one and I hope you love it. But the first thing we need to do is we need to make some pork rind flour. So this is just basically just the pork rinds that you get in a bag. I got them in a big container at Sam's Club because obviously I had to make a lot to keep testing the recipe. So that's what I'm going to use as the, or part of anyway, because we're going to add another ingredient to it, as the bread coating, okay? So we are not going to use any type of flour or any breadcrumbs or panko or anything. This is totally low carb. So to make the flour, the easiest way I found is to use either a food processor or a high-speed blender. So I'm going to use the Ninja Foodi cold and hot blender so that I can get this done in just a few seconds. Make sure the blender or food processor is extremely dry, okay? You don't want any moisture in there or these would just kind of turn to a paste and you don't want that. So what I have is about 6 cups and that may be just enough. It might not be enough. It might be too many. What I'm looking for is about 1.5 cups of the pork rind flour. So I'm just gonna dump those in. Turn this on, and we're gonna turn the Ninja Foodi on, and I'm just gonna pulse it. All right, let's see what we got here. That looks pretty good. All right, let me just go in here with this and see, and that looks pretty good. They're even and they're in small pieces, so that looks good. All right, now I'll tell you, the smell of these is not the greatest. I'll be right up front and tell you that. But the taste is okay. The taste is fine. I'm not a big fan of pork rinds, so I prefer them with breadcrumbs, but I'm gonna tell you how to do that as well. So whatever you prefer, the little bit of carbs from the breadcrumbs or the pork rinds, either way you can make these and make them delicious. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pour these into our coating tray. Oh, you know what? Let me measure real quick. I do wanna make sure that I'm about 1.5 cups, just in case I'm really short, because I'm gonna add some almond flour to this and I don't wanna have too much almond flour and not enough of the breadcrumbs. Not breadcrumbs, pork rind flour, as they call it, which you can also buy already done from what I understand, but I figure why buy it when you can just make it? All right, so let's see what we have here. Looks like we're gonna be right on the money. We are right on the money, 1.5 cups. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pour that into our coating tray. And then we're gonna add 1/2 cup of almond flour. And then our seasonings. We're gonna use 1 tablespoon of just Italian seasoning and about a half of a teaspoon of salt. And then you could also add some cheese in here if you wanted, a little bit of Parmesan, a little bit of Asiago. You could certainly do that. I'm not gonna do that today, but you certainly can. And then we're just gonna mix it up. I'm not using the right tool, but that's okay. It'll work for now. And I did find that the almond flour really did help everything stay together, and the breading was really, really nice on the cauliflower balls. So I do encourage you to use that. All right, that looks perfect. Absolutely perfect. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside. We won't need that anymore. And I also just want to tell you what else we're going to use to dip the balls in. This is 4 large eggs that I used an immersion blender to blend up. You definitely want them well blended. You don't want any thickness from the whites of the egg. You know how they can get kind of stringy. You don't want that. You want them really well blended. So when we drop our cauliflower balls in and move them over to the breading mixture, because it's not really bread, mixture, that it doesn't clump up and ruin your breading mixture, okay? All right, so the cauliflower. This recipe will use about a half of a head of cauliflower. Now, cauliflower comes in all different sizes. This is a pretty decent size head of cauliflower. So we're gonna get about 4 cups of cauliflower rice out of a half of a head. So I'm just gonna cut it down. There we go. Put this to the side and move this to the side here. I need more room. Don't you find that you always need more room in the kitchen? No matter how much counter space you have, no matter how organized you try to be, you always need more room. Well, that's me anyway. All right, so to make the cauliflower rice, now I know you can buy it and that's perfectly fine. You can buy it if you want, but I never do. I always get cauliflower and I rice it up myself. The easiest way that I've found to do this is with a manual food processor, and I absolutely love this one. It's also great for making salsas, fruit salsas, tomato salsas, all kinds of things, because you control exactly the size of the cut. So even when you pulse on a food processor, you're not really in control. I mean, the blade is spinning and it's gonna do what it's gonna do. This, you can put different pressure down to get it to spin at a different speed, and you can control exactly the size, and I just love that. So I don't use it very often, but when I do cauliflower rice, I definitely use it, or when I make salsas, I use it. All right. So now I'm just gonna take the cauliflower and just kind of cut off the florets a little bit here. And the florets can come off in pretty big pieces. You don't want them that big in the food processor. You want to cut them probably about maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches, 2 inches at the most. And that way the blades can work through them pretty easily. I like to fill the food processor at least halfway. I don't overfill it, but I do like to go halfway. So usually it takes about 3 times for me to get all of this done. All right, set that on. So if I went slower, it wouldn't do as much. A little bit more. That's good. So now I'm just going to put this into a measuring cup. And you don't really have to measure everything like I'm doing, but you do want to have a good idea of how much cauliflower you're using, because you don't want to use too much cream cheese or your balls will turn out a little too soft. I had that happen to me once when I was just kind of throwing things in. So I just try to keep an eye on how much. So if I end up with 3 cups of cauliflower, that's fine. I'll just cut back on the cream cheese a little bit. If I end up with, 4.5, I'll probably leave it at the 3 ounces of cream cheese. If I ended up with 2, I would definitely cut the cream cheese in half. And this makes a total of like 18 of these balls. So you could easily cut this whole recipe in half if you didn't want to make as many, or even you can cut it in thirds. But they freeze so well that I don't mind making them up. And I actually have some in the freezer right now that were coated with breadcrumbs instead, because I wanted to show you guys, you know, how to freeze them and then how to package them for good storage in the freezer. All right, I'm just gonna finish getting this chopped up, and then we're gonna preheat the Ninja Foodi. We're gonna get some olive oil in, and we're gonna get to sauteing our cauliflower. All right, so that half of a cauliflower head ended up being about 3.5 cups rice. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off another floret here and make it so that it is 4 cups. Now you don't have to do that. I'm just, for the recipe's sake, I like to be as exact as I can, but you certainly don't need to. It doesn't make that much of a difference. All right, that's perfect. Before I clean this up, let's go ahead and get our pot on sear saute. So go ahead and open up the lid, turn it on, sear saute, high is what you want, hit the start button, and we're gonna put in about a tablespoon of olive oil in the bottom here. And we're gonna let that heat up. I'm gonna clean up real quick. We're gonna get our cauliflower sauteed. I'm gonna talk about the cheeses. We're gonna get these arancini balls made up and air fried. All right, so the olive oil's been heating up for a few minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the riced cauliflower. Again, this is 4 cups. And then just mix it around and let it saute for a few minutes. The goal is to get it a little soft. We do not want it mushy though, okay? So, but just a little bit soft, and we're gonna get the garlic clove in there, and that's gonna give tons of flavor. So 1 clove of garlic minced. You could always use 2, but I would not go more than that, really, because we're not cooking this very long, and raw minced uncooked garlic is extremely powerful. So 1 to 2 cloves would be the most that I would suggest. All right, now we don't need a lot of salt because we're putting in cheese, and cheese has salt naturally in it. Well, maybe not naturally, but cheese has salt in it. So I'm gonna use half of a teaspoon of salt. Of course, you can taste it before you roll your balls to make sure that they're seasoned exactly the way you like them. I don't put any Italian seasoning in or anything else now because I really like the creaminess of the cheese and the flavors of the cheese, and I don't want a whole bunch of spices in there. I've got the Italian seasoning in the breading, and that was enough for me. Ooh, these are delicious, let me tell you. All right, so let's go ahead and get our cream cheese in. That takes a little bit of time to soften and melt in there. So that was 3 ounces of cream cheese. And then let me talk about the other cheeses I have. This is 1.5 ounces of mozzarella and 1.5 ounces of provolone. And then I've got a little bit of Asiago. Now I've got the Asiago, I love it. I know some people don't, they call it stinky cheese, but I happen to love it. So I'm gonna use a little bit of that in there, but I'm gonna call for Parmesan in the recipe. You can use either, either will be fine. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and grate this in. This all happens pretty quick, so you want to stay right here with it. All right. I use probably about 2 tablespoons of the Parmesan or Asiago as I'm using, which is probably about 1/2 ounce. All right, now let's go ahead and mix this around. You will see the cheese start to melt. It becomes nice and ooey gooey. And as the cream cheese also softens and gets into the mixture, we're going to end up with something that we can form into balls. It's wonderful. You could even put some pepper. If you wanted some spice, put some red pepper flakes in here, or some cayenne pepper or chipotle. I mean, you can really switch this up to be anything you like. You could even add in some ground turkey if you wanted to, but make sure that it's lean and make sure you don't have any grease. So if you use like ground beef instead of turkey, just make sure that you drain it really well because you don't want that extra moisture. And cauliflower tends to be on the moisture side as you cook it, but we barely cook it. Barely. And that's all we need to do. Okay, that looks good. Perfect. All right. All I'm going to do is just take a little taste here just to make sure that our seasonings are spot on. They are. You can really taste that garlic. So be careful even if you go up to 2 cloves. Oh my goodness, that looks great. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put it into this container while we get set up to roll it. Now, I like to let mine cool off for a few minutes. It just makes it easier, you know? When it's piping hot, it's a little hard to form the balls. So I just let it cool off. You can even stick it in the refrigerator. Of course, as the cheese cools too, it starts to harden some, and that helps to keep everything together. All right, so while that cools off, I'm gonna go ahead and wash my pot, and then we will get to air frying. All right, so I popped this in the refrigerator for about 5 to 10 minutes, and it looks like it's good now. It's still warm, but it definitely is gonna form balls a little bit easier than if you just did it when it was right out of the pot. Now, real quick, before I go into how to bread them, I just wanted to talk real quick about a couple of things that I tried, because I always like to try different things so that I can tell you about it, so that if you want to try them, you kind of have an idea of how they're going to turn out. So I wanted to see if I could do it without any breading whatsoever. And although they look pretty good, this is just the cauliflower mixture just put in the air fryer. They're not really crispy, and they did tend to kind of fall apart a little bit and stick. So that didn't work out so well. And then I tried to dip just once, and this is breadcrumbs though, not the pork rinds. And you can see it kind of flattened down. It just did not work as well. And I did not use an egg mixture on this one. So it is important to use the egg mixture. It really helps to keep them in a round ball and to have them set up really nicely. All right, so to get started, this is probably about 1.5 tablespoons, a scoop, or you could use a regular tablespoon, that would be fine. You could make them any size you want. They can be bigger or smaller, it does not matter. The cook time is about the same either way. I've made them pretty large with a large scoop, but I found this size works the best. All right, so just scoop some out. It is still warm. Roll it in your hand a little bit to kind of form that ball, and plop it in. And then I just move it around in the egg mixture. Take it out here. And then you could use the back end of this, but I just use a fork now. Once it gets coated, and then I kind of roll it. Perfect. Now you could stop here, but I really liked the texture better when I did it twice. So then back into the egg wash, kind of move it around a little bit, and back in here, and then just coat again. All right, there we go. Now they're still soft. I can tell that they're kind of wanting to sort of flatten out. So they might flatten a little bit, but they're still gonna be delicious. If you left them in the refrigerator a little bit longer, you would avoid that. All right, I'm gonna make up the rest. We're only gonna do 6 today. Like I said, this makes 18, but I'm gonna freeze the rest so that I can cook them when we have company next week. So You want to get your Ninja Foodi preheated. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on broil. So put your tender crisp lid down. I really like to preheat anything that's breaded on broil. It's the hottest setting, but if you're using the 5-quart and you don't have it, just go on the highest air fry setting and you'll be fine. All right, my fingers are dirty here. All right, and 10 minutes is fine. And I'm going to finish making the rest of these up and then we will get them in the air fryer. All right, so I am not Speedy Gonzalez. I had to reset this, so it took me about 17 minutes to bread them all twice. So dipped in the egg, dipped in the crumbs, back in the egg, back in the crumbs. Now, when I got to about ball 15, I ran out of the pork rind mixture. So you might need to increase that a little bit to get them all done. So what I did was I threw in a little bit of breadcrumbs, seasoned them up, and I'm gonna go ahead and cook one of these along with 5 of the keto ones so I can taste both of them and let you know my thoughts. All right, so now we can go ahead and switch functions. We wanna go to the air frying function at 400 degrees, hit the start button. 20 minutes is fine, it doesn't take that long, but it's fine to just leave it, let it default to that. We're gonna go ahead and spritz the basket with a little bit of oil of your choice. I'm using canola oil. You can fit in 6 comfortably. You could probably squeeze in 8, but I just find putting in 6 is the way we want to go here. So what I'm going to do so that I can remember, because they look identical, you cannot tell the difference. So I'm going to put 5 around, and then I'm going to put the one that's in the breadcrumbs in the center. All right, so I can keep track because literally they look exactly the same. Give them a spritz on top and put the lid down and leave it alone for 5 minutes, okay? You don't want to try to turn them. You need them to set on the bottom, and they'll set up nicely and crisp nicely if you just leave them alone for 5 minutes. Then we'll flip, and then we go just another couple minutes and we're done. All right, so we've gone the full 5 minutes, and now we want to gently turn these. So just kind of grab them with some tongs and turn them over. If they are still stuck to the bottom, close the lid and go another minute. But these look like they're coming up fine. They're still on the softer side, so I don't want to really dig in with my tongs. I'm doing this pretty gently. That one was a little stubborn, but it did release on its own. There we go. All right, another little spritz. And keep going. It looks like they're probably gonna need another 3 minutes or so. So in the meantime, while those are cooking, I wanted to show you how I freeze them. So I can move these over because these will all go into the freezer the exact same way. Now these are the ones that are coated with breadcrumbs. So what I did was I put them in the freezer for about, I would say 2 hours. I made them earlier today. The longer the better. The harder they are, the better it's gonna be if you're using a food saver. Now you could obviously use a Ziploc bag, but the key to freezing anything is to remove as much air as you can. Air in the freezer is not your friend. The other thing that's not your friend in the freezer when you're freezing something in a bag is heat. So you make sure all your food is completely cool 100%, and cold is even better before you put it in the refrigerator. In the freezer, sorry. All right, so I just sealed up my little bag here. So I've got a little bag, and I'm gonna put in probably, I don't know, I'm gonna do 2, I think. Just because, well, maybe I'll do 3. I'll do 3. So I'm gonna put 3 balls in here, and now I'm gonna do the vacuum seal on this. But one of the things that I love about the one that I just bought, which I got mine from Sam's Club, but I will link in the description to the same exact thing. It's a different model number, but same exact thing that you can get on Amazon if you don't have a Sam's membership. This one has something called Moist, and what that does is doesn't suck as much. It's not as hard. And so I find with something like this that's on the softer side, that works really well. So I'm gonna put this in, go ahead and turn it to the seal, and I'm gonna hit the moist and then vacuum seal. I have so much fun with this, I'm telling you. Then the red button goes on and it is sealing it now. And Jeff and I have already made these, frozen these, and we took them on vacation with us. And we took our Foodi. I took the little 5-quart baby Foodi with us, and we ended up making dinner out of these. So what I did was I put some angel hair pasta in some water, and I think I pressure cooked it for 0 minutes until it was done. I heated up my homemade marinara sauce. I put a few of these on top of the spaghetti, poured the marinara sauce right over, did a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top, and oh my goodness, we had a delicious dinner. All right, and there you go. So now you got vacuum packed 3 little arancini balls, cauliflower, keto style. Well, these aren't keto style though. And now you can pop them in the freezer, and whenever you're ready for them, you can air fry them from frozen. Same exact temperature and preheat. You just might need to go a few more minutes, okay? So there we go. I love my food saver, by the way. All right, let's take a look at these, see how they're going. Now, it's interesting, you can see that the one with the breadcrumbs is a little bit darker. I just gouged it. I just made a mistake. Oh, well. Live and learn, right? But we're not quite ready yet, so we're going to keep going. So it looks like it might be a full 10 minutes, okay? I think the breadcrumb ones cook a little bit faster than the pork rind ones, but that's fine. So meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and get the rest of these ready to freeze. We went a total of 11 minutes, but 10 is fine. 10 is fine. 10 is fine. All right. So let me get this one out first. This is the one I kind of gouged a little bit. That was totally my fault. But anyway, that is the one with the breadcrumbs. And these are the ones that are keto style. Oh my gosh. Now see, now they're totally hard and crispy. Like I'm actually pressing down on these tongs. So you can see they're good to go now. They're perfect. That's it. All right. So we can go ahead and turn the Ninja Foodi off and let these cool a minute. And I'm going to dip them in some delicious marinara sauce, which I made in the Ninja Foodi hot cold blender, but I also have instructions on how to make it, whether stovetop or in the Ninja Foodi. So you can check out my website for that. And I will link to the video right up there for you guys. This is so good and so easy to make. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bread coated one. This is the breadcrumbs. They're seasoned with the same exact seasoning, just this one has breadcrumbs and that has the pork rinds with the almond flour. All right. I hope I don't burn my mouth. They're still kind of hot. Perfect. Wow. The only thing I would probably change is I might add a little more cheese. And I've done it with various amounts of cheese in my test batches, but usually it's a little bit cheesier. The flavor though is spectacular. But yeah, I like a little bit more gooey cheese, so I think I'll increase that to maybe 2 ounces of each provolone and mozzarella. So good though. Oh my goodness. The flavor's outstanding. All right, let's try the one that is totally keto. I don't think there's anything in here that isn't keto, but if you're keto and you think that I put an ingredient in that isn't keto, please let me know in the comments, because I really try to be very careful about that if I'm calling something keto, that it really is keto. I usually say it's low carb because I think that's safer. All right, here we go. Perfect. They taste the same. The crunch might be a little bit more on that one, but it's negligible, really. They really both taste delicious, but definitely both need more cheese. So More cheese, please. That's what we're gonna call for in the recipe, is a little bit more cheese. And I know people, when you're adding cheese, you know you add more than what the recipe calls for, right? If you're a cheese lover like me, you absolutely do. So as always, make it your own, make it delicious.